water was poured over the sacrifice 3 different times, and a trench that surrounded the altar was filled with water. And the water ran around the altar, and he also filled the trench with water. And it came to pass at the time for the offering of the evening sacrifice, that Elijah the prophet came near, and said, Eternal God of Abraham, Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known this day that you are God in Israel, and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things by your word. Hear me, O Eternal, hear me, that this people may know that you are the eternal God, and that you have turned their heart back again. Then the fire of the Eternal fell, and consumed the burnt sacrifice, and the wood, and the stones, and the dust, and licked up the water that was in the trench. And when all the people saw it, they fell on their faces, and they said, 107 The Eternal, he is the God. The Eternal, he is the God. Then Elijah said to them, Take the prophets of Baal, let not one of them escape. So they took them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon, and killed them there. 1 Kings 18:35-40. It is time for the spiritual application of this story of Elijah to be fulfilled. 450 prophets of Baal died that day. Now, the time has come for a type of this same account to be fulfilled in the environs of the spiritual Israel of God, the Church of God. I have also made a petition to the eternal God of Abraham. My petition is that this first phase of the 5th thunder be fulfilled exactly as it is written here. This request is so that scattered brethren who are asleep might be awakened, and know that God has granted them the opportunity to repent and return to him at this time. Also, it is so that they may know that I am his end-time prophet, his spokesman for the 2 end-time witnesses. It will be revealed in a very short time, whether I am God's prophet or not, as well as whether scattered church leaders are God's ministers any longer or not. As stated in a previous chapter, either one of these is true, or neither is true. To make it absolutely clear, my petition covers more in regard to the scattered ministers. The most notable among them will be those who die toward the beginning. However, every minister who is scattered, who fails to repent early on and return to God, with me, as God's minister, teaching them, will die during the final 3½ years of great tribulation. They will not be in the first resurrection, and they will not see the millennial reign of God's kingdom on earth. The most notable deaths early on, which are yet to come to pass, will be the 2 remaining television presenters in the living 108 the 7th thunders of the 6th seal Church of God. The sound of this thunder will be intensified by the early deaths of the leaders of the Philadelphia Church of God, the restored Church of God, and the Church of the Great God. Then, those in the largest scattered group, who think they have escaped, will be lifted up to believe that God is with them, because they are so filled with pride. But, when that happens, the deaths of many in the united Church of God will begin. How much more specific can one be, to show that he is either of God, and indeed his prophet, or someone who has clearly stepped over the line, to be dealt with by God in a speedy manner? Time will tell, and you don't have long to wait. 2. The second phase of death will be upon notable people in the world. It will begin small, and increase in intensity as all the thunders do. These notable people will include political leaders, and well-known entertainment and sports figures. It will include other religious figures within the various religions of the world. The primary exception to this will be the Pope of the Catholic Church, who is prophesied to die directly after the return of Jesus Christ. This phase will overlap the first, but this is the main one that people in the world will notice. 3. The third phase of death will come from epidemics and pandemics in the world. Over this past year, many governments in the world have started minimal preparations for a possible pandemic from bird flu. This and much more are coming upon the world scene. As God has warned throughout time, the end time will be the worst time in man's history. The 6th thunder. This thunder also concerns both the church and the world. It 109 started very small with the publication of my first book, The Prophesied End Time. The content of that book is strong concerning the announcement of prophesied end-time events that have already begun, but the pronouncement, that I am an end-time prophet, is a declaration that will have profound significance for God's church. The growing manifestation of proof that I am God's end-time prophet, and that I am the spokesman of his 2 end-time witnesses, is a thunder that will become powerfully stronger all the way up until the very return of Jesus Christ. Number 6. The sixth thunder is the growing revelation of God's end-time witnesses. That revelation is the time the spokesman of God's two end-time prophets, the spokesman of his two end-time witnesses. This thunder will grow louder as the events described in the previous thunders continue to unfold with ever-increasing intensity, proving the validity of what has been written, and that what I am saying is true. Radio and television interviews will become more than enormous curiosity, news, controversy, and fear increase in proportion to the growing intensity of these thunders. A few quotes need to be repeated here. They are recorded earlier in this chapter, and they have everything to do with the sixth thunder. The seven thunders will be declared in the remainder of this chapter. Those thunders have never been announced before now. Everything else that John wrote, concerning the seven seals, seven trumpets and the seven last plagues, was each declared by an angel. 110. The seven thunders of the sixth seal. The seven thunders did not come from angels. John heard the sound of seven thunders. This was a message about an end-time prophet of God. The specifics of the seven thunders were left for this end time, in order to be declared to be pronounced by God's end-time prophet, the spokesperson of the two end-time witnesses. More about this will be explained in the sixth thunder. The seven thunders have much to do with how God will reveal his two witnesses. These thunders serve as a prelude to the final tribulation, and the greater manifestation of those two witnesses. The revelation of the seven thunders has everything to do with the revelation of God's end-time witness about man, and God's revelation of his two witnesses to man. Sadly, most will choose to ignore what they hear. God did not allow the Apostle John to write about the seven thunders. John did not hear what each specific thunder was, but he heard part of what was said about how the thunders would be revealed. John was an apostle and a prophet, in that he recorded all that God inspired him to write. He wrote the book of Revelation, but it was not given to him to understand all that he had written. As John's counterpart, God has given me the understanding of the revelations given to John. In addition, I am the spokesman, one of the very end-time prophets and witnesses, that John wrote about. In interviews that followed the publication of my first book, and in correspondence sent to me since then, the question was often asked, how did God reveal these things to you? It is by 111 the same means that God has so often used in the past, to reveal his will and purpose to his servants, the prophets of old. God does this through inspiration of his Spirit, the conveying of his very thoughts, words, to the mind, thoughts, of those with whom he is working. Many throughout the ages, and even now, falsely make this claim as the means that God has spoken to them. False religious teachers have made a mockery of this means that God has used to reveal his true will to his people. The question about how God has revealed his truth to me is a fair one. The answer, that I am who I say I am, will be given by the events described in both books coming true exactly as I have described. This will be the proof that I am God's end-time witness and spokesman. But before great power is given to me to perform miraculous events similar to those of Moses, but with far greater power, once the seventh seal is opened, and the final 3.5 years of worldwide tribulation begins, God has reserved these seven thunders for me to declare. These seven thunders are a combination of God's inspiration in me to know his purpose, and being at one with him concerning his will for this end time. These thunders are largely a matter of my own choosing, which God has given to me, since I am his spokesman and the one who will stand before him to the whole world during this end time. Revelation 11:4 and Zechariah 4:14. All seven thunders are given as God's proof that I am his end-time prophet. God has given me the job of declaring his witness of man to man.